that I've seen here in financial aid, but that's what we're here to talk about today.
And I mentioned maybe before some folks joined, but I am recording this session, as you heard, for those who can't join us today. Okay, let's see. I'm monitoring the waiting room here too. Okay. See if I can get the slides. Okay. First of all, so you may or may not have heard of the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt. You somehow heard about today's webinar, so thank you for joining. Just a few quick things to share with you about the coalition. We are a nonprofit statewide organization. We have a mission to help Wisconsinites minimize their student loan debt and especially be able to address unmanageable debt. The ways that we do that, we offer webinars, information and resources for students before, during, and after college. So we try to stretch across a pretty broad range. So from our organization, you'll see things like today's event about FAFSA, and then you're also going to see some events and information about student loan repayment issues. We have a free newsletter called Clarity is Confidence that provides news and tips. We get it out about once a month. You can subscribe to it on our website. Our website is debtsmarts.org. And then in particular, we host a free confidential caller helpline and email helpline for student loan questions. And those are the numbers and the email where you can reach that. That information is also located on our website, DebtSmarts. So we don't deal with personally identifiable information on these calls or these emails. However, we do have experts on hand to help you navigate what we realize is a pretty complicated landscape. All right, so you heard quick intros from us. If you got the Luma invite, you got the much longer ones. I'll just say a little bit more about myself, that in addition to really caring very deeply about education access, as a student, I have student loans myself. I actually looked recently and I was like, wow, they were actually higher than I realized. But I paid them off, hallelujah. And I was able to go onto the federal student aid website to make sure that they were all paid off. And I have 3 children spanning across 12 years. So I have done the FAFSA for 12 years now. So I feel everyone's pain on the call. And then Karla, do you want to share anything else of your bio there?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add in, kind of along with my passion for higher ed, is finding my passion for communications. And so much of what I've done in the last few years since I've found this communications role is really work to improve how we talk about financial aid to students to improve access. I like to joke that even though the system of financial aid might be difficult, how we talk about it doesn't have to be. There are ways that we can simplify it and help people through it. I think that some of the benefits of why FAFSA is making some of these changes this year is that it is to improve access and to make things simpler and to simplify some language that they're using. But like any transition, there are some headaches, and we're feeling those a lot right now. So I have been doing some research and in some places related to communication access in higher ed, and just generally appreciate that you all can join us today to talk about it a little bit more.
Okay. So yeah, the elephant in the room. You don't actually have to be an education, I guess, nerd or whatever to know that FAFSA is in the news a lot right now. It is in the mainstream media, and the news the news that we are hearing is not good. So let's just put it out there in terms of the glitches. So bad news. And Karla, if you want to weigh in on the pain here, you can, but just quickly, setting the landscape here. So there was a mandate, a congressional mandate to update and really overhaul the FAFSA. They had to do it by the end of 2023, and it delayed it. So the launch date was continuously pushed back. It was unclear, and it complicated plans for everyone. And we're going to talk about some of those in this webinar. So it got pushed back. When it was opened, it was what they called a soft launch. It meant that, some folks could get in and complete the process, and probably too many others couldn't complete the process, or couldn't even access the site. So that's a lot of what you're hearing about, I'm sure, if you are hearing about it. And even now, so not all of the steps are working for all users. And there continue to be blocks that I won't go into, because I'm sure we're going to talk about it in the Q&A.
Well, and I do want to add that yes, there are some rough spots in this, but it's not all bad. There is actually some good in what's been happening, and I do want to highlight that is that the vast majority of students are able to get in and submit it. I think it's something like we're in the millions now of students who have been able to complete it. So we're not seeing the great numbers that we saw a year ago, but we are still seeing most students are successful. The downside is when they get stuck, they get really stuck and can't get anywhere. And so the bad then for students that are in that situation are really, really in a bad spot. The other kind of positive swing, we actually just learned last week, we had some people at a session with some federal student aid officers in DC, and a big improvement is that they are reporting that the average time to completion for the 24-25 FAFSA is 8 minutes. I'm going to say that again. It is 8 minutes on average for a student to get in, start, complete, submit that FAFSA. To give you some time difference, a year ago for last year's version of the FAFSA or previous iterations, we used to warn a first-time filer that they had to allocate up to an hour to fill out that FAFSA for the first time. Continuing students, it was a little faster. It was more like 20 to 30 minutes or so. So the fact that we are now averaging all students at 8 minutes, that alone should say some positive as to how, when we get students into it, if they can complete it, it is overall a better experience. The one pain point that I will point out and just call out, because it's really the unfortunate population that has some of the highest need and needs some of the biggest support, that is totally stuck. And those are our students who have parents without social security numbers. Those are really the ones that just cannot get anywhere right now. And we are just in a holding pattern until federal student aid is able to have a resolution. And there are some of those issues where there are no workarounds until federal student aid moves forward with what they need to be doing.
Right. And yes, and I figured starting out with the bad news, stick around, because there's more good news than bad. Okay, so and I know I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm saying here, I took a screenshot of some of the comments on a YouTube video, because we tend to hear the bad news. We tend to hear like the problems. So I want to acknowledge that, these are the things that, if you are hearing these things and you are reading about it, this is probably what you're hearing about. As Karla shared a little bit already with you, you're gonna sorry, not a good time to recall. Whoops, there. Okay. Okay, so anyway, whoops, there we go. 1, 2. There. So consequences. So we do know, because it opened late. It opened 2 months late. So some of these numbers are really just a matter of the math and the amount of time to complete these things. So the numbers are down nationally. They're down compared to a year ago. They're down compared to a change in the amount of completions. We saw, we did see that FAFSA completions did drop off quite a bit because of the challenges during the height of the pandemic. So they're down, and in Wisconsin, they're down even more. So don't want to dwell too much on that, but those are the numbers. And what we know is that the students hit the hardest are those who are low income, high minority, geography, you know, in under-resourced areas. So we know that this is our landscape. We know that this is the challenge. We know that the media is covering quite a bit of the negative stories. They're covering, I would say, much less what Karla just shared with us. So let's see, here we go. Okay. So FAFSA. So we know we're hearing all those bad things. We're going to go into some of the details about them. But here's why it matters, and here's why they changed it. Way too much unclaimed money nationally and in Wisconsin. So I don't know if I can take a minute here to do, let's see, a poll. Let's see. Oops, let me not do that one. Actually. Okay. Just a quick poll. How much federal financial aid money was unclaimed in Wisconsin in 2021? If you want to just give me a guess here. Okay. Correct answer, 49 million. That's just in the state of Wisconsin. That's a lot of money to be leaving on the table. Now, this is probably a savvy audience. No one guessed that it runs out. But when I do this question with some student audiences and families, a lot of them guess that there's not enough of the money and that it runs out. So we're leaving a lot of money on the table. There's also, I think, a common misperception, and I see this in working with families. I'm sure, Karla, you do too, that FAFSA has just a very limited reach, and that it's only for a very limited number of student families. I can tell you again, as a parent, I fill out the FAFSA, and it has benefited my family and my children who went to college. It unlocks state aid, it unlocks private aid, a lot of scholarships use that information. It can unlock a lot of institutional awards. So the message here is we should not, you know, by all means, do not give up on this issue because there is a lot of money at stake overall, and Karla shared some of this already. The new FAFSA means there's more money. There's more money for more kinds of students. They've changed some of the formulas. They have raised some eligibility levels. They've increased the Pell Grant. These are all really, really important and overdue things. Another thing is that there's all kinds of research around how post-secondary degrees, so that's 2-year and that's 4-year, are the key to higher earnings. So I know that, again, what we hear a lot in the media are reports about, you know, whether college is worth it or whether, you know, the debt is out of control. These media narratives do not actually focus on what we know from the larger, you know, bits of information that we know, which is persistence, completing a degree, going to a training program after high school does lead to those higher earnings. And then, you know, the other thing too is we're all in this together. So is there frustration? Yes, there's frustration. We're all feeling some frustration, but more than ever, we need to get through the messiness of this rollout. It's the biggest change in a generation, and we need to make sure for those of us who are helping students that we continue to reach out to those students and see where they need help and make sure that they have the message that is on this screen here, is that there's absolutely money there that should be claimed. So I'm going to go into all the positives because what I said in this webinar is that we're going to talk about the help. So I laid out the landscape. I acknowledge that it's tough. I acknowledge that you're hearing and seeing and reading about all the toughness. But like I said, we are all in this together. And what I'm going to share with you, and you know, I'll be sharing these screens or this PowerPoint with those who registered afterwards. But here are several different helpful websites. So I know I was having a little bit of fun on this, but you can find on YouTube, you can find Karla giving us, play-by-play daily updates, because they are literally at times daily updates. You can find on TikTok, there's actually some really helpful TikToks. There's one from the California Student Commission, really going through it, really helping people understand the new terminology, understand where people are getting held up as they try to complete the FAFSA, and what are some known issues. There is, for those of you who are trying to see how your colleges, I'm not your colleges, how your schools, your high schools may be doing. And I know that that's always for counselors and schools that can be challenging, is to say how, what are our completion rates look like. The National College Attainment Network, NCAN, has been running this FAFSA tracker now, I think, for 6 years. And they update it just as often as they can as the federal data is released. So it's a great way to get national information. So those graphs I showed in an earlier slide came from this FAFSA tracker, and they so they break down by state, they break down by student demographics. They can show you year-over-year growth. And so again, it can be an excellent way just to see in this whole big process, how completion rates are going. Again, we know with the new FAFSA, there are some limitations on that data. Some organizations and some groups are having difficulty getting that student level data. So all the more reason, I think, for all of us to be more proactive than ever in reaching out to students and families about getting this done. This is a screenshot from another kind of data tableau. So if those of you are interested in how different schools and districts in the state have done over time in terms of their completion ranges, what the trends are, and what the school characteristics are, you can find that data actually at the Fair Opportunity Project website. There is a FAFSA tracker there. So that's another way to capture progress. Back to Karla's office, the Office of Student Financial Aid is really an incredible website. I will just say that to all of you. And I took 2 screenshots of some of the really, really helpful information that they provide. So all of these things, these are all, accordion stacks. So you click on these, it unpacks. It really explains like what some of the new terminology is, why it's changed, what the implications might be because of the changes. And I just want to underscore how time intensive it is for college offices to be updating this kind of information right now, because there are so many changes. There are so many new reports of things that are happening and things that are supposed to be functioning a certain way and may not be. So I think Karla even saw on the website that if you as a FAFSA applicant hit a snag, you can take a screenshot of it and email it to this Office of Student Financial Aid, and they will help you troubleshoot it. Is that right, Karla?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our services are obviously directly geared towards our students and our prospective students at UW-Madison, but as just a financial aid community, we're here to help everybody get through this process. So even if you have students that aren't planning to come to Madison, our team doesn't have all the answers, but we're definitely here to help as we can. We actually had a parent comment that they've been having troubles getting through the 1-800 number for FAFSA help. And we're telling people, maybe don't call that 1-800 number. Talk to your financial aid office first and see if they can get you some help to get you through it before you have to use that 1-800 number. So definitely reach out, whether it's our office or if you've got students going to any other campus or any other school across the country. all of us are really tapped into what's going on and trying to get students through it as painlessly as possible.
Another site that I I think maybe I underestimated at first, but the Office of Federal Student Aid. And here I'm talking specifically about their YouTube channel, but they have a chat bot, they have so many FAQs there. They have a dedicated page talking about the known issues with the new FAFSA. So I, didn't want to overburden people with too much information on this session today. But if you are working with students or for yourself, the YouTube channel, which is Federal Student Aid, is I think tremendously helpful. It's updated weekly, maybe even daily. They chunk out every aspect of the FAFSA. So here's a screenshot that I just placed on the bottom here of the kinds of topics that they cover. They're never really more than like 2.5 minutes. So they're bite-sized, they're really easy to go through, to pause, to replay, and just a really helpful resource, I think, that are geared towards the non-specialist, the non-professional.
Mhm.
And Carla, I don't know if you want to add anything
I
there.
was just going to say, this is an area where they truly were like radio silent. And then all of a sudden, these videos started popping up just within the last couple of months. So I do expect to see more as well, and would encourage you to go back and look every once in a while to see what new videos they have out there. Because it does seem like they are responding to some of these pain points and addressing them through these videos. So their YouTube page has always been very, very good and solid.
And then some other specific sites to Wisconsin here. So as I mentioned, I am also with an organization called Fair Opportunity Project, and that is also a nonprofit organization. We work with students virtually with mentoring, essay review help, financial aid help. And because we are a tech-oriented resource organization, we created a chatbot in this past couple of months. It is trained on the latest information. So just a caveat to all of you on the call is that if you are Googling for FAFSA information, make sure that whatever article you're looking at or whatever resource you click on is for the 24-25 FAFSA. Because obviously there's still a lot of older information out there, and some of that information may no longer be relevant with the new FAFSA overhaul. So this particular chatbot, you can get to it through the Fair Opportunity Project website. We affectionately called it FinAid. And it is trained exclusively on FSA knowledge-based information, and also NASFA, which is the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. So it's a closed loop knowledge base for this chatbot. And it actually, I mean, I encourage all of you to jump on it. It's a free resource and check it out. You can actually even type in questions about like financial aid office contact information in Wisconsin. You can type your questions that you may have in any global language, and it will respond to you in that language. So it's again, like with any chatbot or any online resource, you want to always double check that with your financial aid specialist. But it can be a great starting point for answering your questions, and it's 24/7. So there's that. Back to UW-Madison, they do these FAFSA frenzies. Here's a screenshot of their spring campus dates. There are many, many more when you go to the website. So it's their financialaid.wis.edu/frenzy. These are in-person weekly events on the UW-Madison campus. And you can show up there, and there are experts. They're going to answer your questions. And there's free food. Yay. And I do want to underscore something Karla said about the 8-minute piece. So when the FAFSA first launched, College Goal Wisconsin, which is another terrific FAFSA support organization, they ran a number, I think maybe 46 or 47 events around the state. And I participated as a volunteer in the ones in the Madison area. And like Karla said, for most people, they looked at me and they said, "That's it." And we looked at each other and we said, "Yeah, that's it." So the changes in this year's FAFSA include a much more direct pull of information, financial information, and that's part of the permissions that you give when you file your FSA ID and you apply through the FAFSA. So it was incredibly quick for most people, to the point where they kind of looked at me, and I've had several say, "Well, whoa, this was way more complicated when I was a student." So we do want to make sure that that message gets out, is that, again, with all the bad news that you might be hearing, for most families, it's incredibly quicker, smoother, easier. Okay. And then back to my organization, Fair Opportunity Project, we, with our virtual services, we provide matching between underserved students, actually in Wisconsin and anywhere in the country, with mentors. And so these are mentors who we train. We do background checks. We coordinate with them based on their interests and expertise around the college application process, perhaps where they've gone to college, their career interests, and then significantly for our subject today, there are several of those mentors who have signed up to be FAFSA mentors. So there are mentors that will you can book an appointment with virtually at a time that's convenient for you and the mentor. When you book that appointment, you'll be given reminders about what you need to have on hand, a reminder that you need to get your FSA ID set up beforehand. And then you set up a time, and they virtually act as being like an on-call help desk while you were busy completing your form. And they're there to help you answer questions or be able to direct you to where you can get the guidance so that you can successfully submit. So you can find the opportunity for getting paired with one of these mentors through the Fair Opportunity Project website. The page is FAFSA Help. You can also set up just short 15-minute help calls if you have something that is shorter, or a question you have before you're ready to dig into completing the FAFSA. And the sessions, in addition to being virtual, there are times available during the day, in the evening, and on the weekend. And those services will go. So the other important thing is, because FAFSA open later than normal, Fair Opportunity Project will be extending this individualized one-on-one help at least through the end of the school year. But obviously you don't want to wait on that. Also through the Equitable Recovery Grant, which was part of the COVID relief money that came to Wisconsin, Fair Opportunity Project is providing a number of free help and resources around FAFSA completion to Wisconsin schools. That can include doing some in-person events. So if you are on this call and you're connected with the school and are interested in having an in-person completion event, please contact me, and we can coordinate a time and the location for that to happen. And as Karla mentioned before, your financial aid office is there to help. Now, because of all the FAFSA changes, this is a busy time of year for those college campuses. But if you, so depending on whatever college you're talking about, and of course here we're, talking a lot about the fabulous help with UW-Madison, but any college, if you contact their financial aid office, if you go to their website, you will find that they have contact information. They often have live chat, buttons on their pages. They offer workshops for completion. They provide virtual and in-person kinds of help. And I just put two resources on this slide that you can look at, where you can book an appointment to ask them their questions. UW Help is a UW system-wide resource. And they have a chat line. They have, a toll-free number, as well as many, helpful videos and tips on their site. Okay, and enough of the context there. I rushed through a lot. I do want to, I know I love this little screenshot I took, but this is on the financial aid office. And I do want us to remember, like Karla said, people are trying to have fun with this. And the challenge that we're going through right now with just such a big overhaul, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So, and we're here to make sure that your students see that as well. So we're at a point here where we can open this up for questions.
Well, we wait for questions too, just some perspective. So you all don't think I just like threw my dog in an Instagram video. We was actually, the point of that video in particular was we were giving some bad news. And so we wanted to put a cute face in a video with bad news. So talking to Carole about like having fun with it, of looking for ways to catch people's attention and have a positive swing of, sometimes we don't have the best news to share, but I can at least put my cute dog Nellie in the video. So you have something sweet to look at while I have to tell you that bad news. So we're going to find other ways. I'm trying to think of other creative ways to get her or other animals in, because it's also one of those, like, somebody actually said to me, like, oh, you put a dog in a video and I'm definitely going to watch it. So we're learning things in this process too.
Definitely. Okay. So I think in terms of addressing questions, I think we're probably a small enough group, people can raise hands. I believe you all are able to unmute yourself. You can also put them in the chat. Okay, let's see a question here. Should students wait for the FAFSA problems to get fixed, or is it okay to do an application now?
Yeah, great question. It's interesting. I honestly think with some of those lower numbers we're seeing in FAFSA filing, especially our continuing students just waiting. I can tell you, I have 2 students that work for me, and both of them, I keep nudging them, like, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? And I think some of it is they're just waiting, that they don't want to do it. So they're like, well, I'll just wait till everything's fixed and then I'll do it. I don't recommend that though. I am telling everybody, at least give it a shot and see if you can get through it. Because honestly, then if you can and you're successful and it takes you that 8 minutes to get it submitted, then you don't have to think about it anymore. That student doesn't have to think about it anymore. That part of the process can just be checked off their list, and then they just go into waiting until the schools can let them know what's going on. So I would definitely encourage, at least try to get it submitted. If you can't, don't sweat it. It's not the end of the world because we're still in this slow launch or soft launch period. But it's always worth giving it a shot. So if you can get it done, it's off your list. Let's see what's else coming up. Oh, deadlines. Every deadline for schools and that FAFSA is going to be a little bit different. UW-Madison waived our priority deadline this year. We just knew it was going to be such kind of a chaotic mess that we're just telling students, get that FAFSA done as soon as possible. Get it done as soon as you can successfully do it. Other schools may still have a priority or final filing deadline. So you should encourage your students to be checking with the schools that they're at or that they're applying to find out if there are any deadlines they should be worried about. Most schools that even had deadlines in January and February are starting to push those back seeing these continuing issues. So even if you do see some problems with a deadline, follow up with that school and find out there's likely extensions that they're offering. Oh, let's see. Carole, do you want to take any of these?
Sure.
You want me to just keep
the
going?
other thing I guess I wanted to add, so is there a deadline for filing? Even though the FAFSA is a national form, federal form, colleges still have a lot of variation, a lot of discretion in their own individual ways that they deal with this information. So I'm saying this especially for those students and parents who are looking at private colleges or who may be looking for colleges that are out of state. You know, the final source of authority on deadlines is going to be the college you're applying to. In this whole delay, don't delay applying, because colleges will not act on your financial aid application until they know you've actually applied for admission. So, you know, typically with first year students, those deadlines are all earlier. So when in doubt, go to the financial aid website of the colleges that you or your student is interested in to confirm that you know what that deadline is for that school. And they may have supplemental information that they require, additional forms that are not necessarily affected by the FAFSA and that you do need to be getting in.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carole. And that actually almost leads into the next question, which is kind of perfect. As a parent, once you get the FAFSA submitted for your student, what do you do at that point? And honestly, it's just a waiting game. And it's a waiting game more this year than in other years. In a typical year, what would happen is, at the point you submit that FAFSA, schools get that data usually within a business week from the time a student submits it. So then that school actually processes the FAFSA, determines all the different financial aid that that student is eligible for at that school, and sends the offer out. The kind of glitch in the system this year is schools still haven't started getting that FAFSA data from students. And what we were told a few weeks ago is that we won't start getting those FAFSA data numbers until mid-March. And like I keep joking with everybody, if anybody has a crystal ball and can give me a better sense of what something like mid-March means, I mean, it could be March 1st, it could be March 25th, as far as we know. So there's just a lot of unknowns as to when schools will be able to start taking action and doing their part of this process, which is what you're waiting for now. The FAFSA is done. The school is actually who will send you the financial aid offer. And so it's just in that holding pattern until you hear more from your school.
Yeah. Karla, also, I know that there have been cases where a parent or a student thinks that they have submitted, but then they find out maybe they didn't, or they're waiting for a response and realize it wasn't submitted. So how can a parent and a student confirm that it really was successfully submitted?
Yeah, that's the hard part right now, is schools can't help you confirm it from our end. In a typical year, we'd be able to go in from our side and see where you are in the process. But like I said, they're not sharing that data with us quite yet. So students and families right now, the best you can do is log back in to the FAFSA, that studentaid.gov account, using sometimes called your federal student aid ID. If you log back into that portal, you should be able to see for your student exactly where they are in the FAFSA process for 24-25. Once schools do start getting access to that data in March, we'll be much better suited to help families look up that information. But again, until we get back-end access, we're kind of sitting ducks to be able to help in some spaces. But that FAFSA portal is still a good place to go back in and check and make sure that it is done, it's in review, and is just waiting for next steps.
Right. So while I'm not seeing another question in here, of course, I have questions. So Karla, what are some of the things that your office is seeing in terms of either the questions that families are coming to you with, or some common problems that they're sharing with you?
Yeah, definitely. Let me pull up actually, just so we were just going over some of the things our team was seeing. And I think what's interesting is some of the challenges that families are having aren't even changes to the FAFSA necessarily. They're just changes to how the application has been formatted or how questions have been worded that are just throwing families off a little bit more than in years past. So one example that's coming up quite a bit is if a student is determined to be a dependent, meaning they have to provide parent information, they're still given an option to say, actually, things aren't really great here with my folks, and I don't want to provide parent information. So I would just like an unsubsidized loan only and process my FAFSA without that information. That question has been on the FAFSA for several years now, but just how it's formatted now this new year is really throwing students off thinking like, wait, should I still provide parent information? Should I go forward with this unsubsidized loan only? It's very important for students to know that unless they are in a unique situation with their parents, they don't want to do the unsubsidized loan only because of all the types of aid you can get, it's still an okay one. I had plenty of unsubsidized loans myself as a student, but it doesn't consider them for the really good stuff like that federal Pell Grant, which is where we really want them looking for money, is the free stuff like grants and scholarships. So as you have students come along that question about it, the unsubsidized loan only and not providing parent information, red flag, have them keep going forward with that parent information and not going the unsubsidized route only. We are also in some cases when people talk about not being able to make corrections, it doesn't work for everybody, but there are some cases where it's actually just easier to delete the FAFSA and start over. I'm trying to remember one of the college goal Wisconsin's, Carole mentioned earlier, there was a family where we ran into that exact problem, that the student got stuck in a weird loop that we couldn't figure out how to get out of. And honestly, what worked was we deleted the FAFSA and started over. And that was able to get us through it. So it is an option if somebody says, you know, I need a correction or I can't do something. That is, even if you look at federal student aid's workaround information, that is a common workaround, is just delete and start over. There's a question that popped up in here. Let me just see. Oh, yes. Yeah. For small family businesses, this is a great question. So there's a prototype FAFSA, but it's not really a practice FAFSA. You might more likely use, there's a federal student aid estimator. I can see if I can find a link here quick. But to address the question more related to small family owned businesses and that change, let's go into that kind of realm for a little bit. The new rule is what it says is that, well, let me back up. In the past, the rule said that a small family owned business or farm, the assets of that or the net worth did not have to be included as a family's assets or as parents' assets on the FAFSA. And so it meant if it was a small business, meaning it was less than 100 employees or equivalent to 100 full-time employees, and related people own the business or farm, then we didn't look at it at all. Just wasn't even considered. Moving forward, those assets do now need to be considered. But the biggest reminder that I give families who ask this question is when we're talking about adding assets from a business, we're talking specifically about your net worth of the business. So it's assets minus any debts that you have against that business. And in a lot of cases, small businesses and small farms run on more debt than they have on assets. So you might not actually be reporting anything. You may just be adding a zero into that asset line because there is nothing for that small business or farm in terms of net worth. So you do have to do a little bit of calculating. But again, just really emphasizing that net worth is the asset minus any debts against it. And that's what you would be including this year. Oh, and Carole, you found the link. Perfect. That's the one I would use if you're looking to get a sense of how things might be different this year. That federal aid estimator, it doesn't give you state aid or what your institutions might be offering students, but it will give you a sense of how the FAFSA is filed at least a little bit, and then income and asset information will be in there too.
Yeah, so that is one of the changes in the new FAFSA is how they consider assets. And so that is something that also I think the media have covered quite a bit, saying, oh, this part is changing. as Karla mentioned, it's changing. It isn't necessarily that it's changing for the worse. So these estimators, perhaps if you can contact the college that you're interested in attending, can help you try to figure that out. But different doesn't necessarily mean bad.
Yeah. Well, and just to keep going on the asset, because I do see a couple more questions coming in. Other things just to keep aware of assets on the FAFSA of things that haven't changed are things like your primary residence. So the home you live in, the family lives in, is never an asset on the FAFSA. Now, if that family owns other properties, again, it's net worth of that property that would be considered an asset, not the overall value of it, the net worth of it. So say you have a cabin up north, but it still has a mortgage on it. You want to take account of that mortgage before you're looking at the asset of whatever that other property is. Retirement accounts, not assets. So that question comes up a lot for families. If it's an official retirement account, so in a 401k or a 403b, those are not assets on the FAFSA. Really, that big change just has to do with the business side of things.
Karla, I know there's another change that I know has gotten some attention, and it's the one about counting siblings in college at the same time. How are you seeing that play out at UW-Madison?
It's hard right now because since we don't actually have any FAFSA data yet, we are not able to see how drastically our students are going to be impacted from this year from last year. We're really looking at it as a case-by-case basis. So we're going to let families know that if things, especially for our continuing students, not so much for our first years, but our continuing students, if there is really drastic change to their eligibility because of this, we're, like I said, looking at those on a case-by-case situation. But it is something that may impact more students in terms of their eligibility because of how it drastically changes that student aid index number. Got to make sure I call it the right thing now.
Right. The student aid index, so terminology has changed, and that used to be the EFC, the expected family contribution, or estimated, I guess, was it?
Expected. Nope, expected.
So that's an example where I guess I live and breathe this information too much. So on my social media feeds, I'll get all kinds of like financial advisors and businesses and blah, blah, blah. And many of them are still saying EFC. My point being, again, make sure that whatever information and resources you're looking at are current, because things have changed and some of the rules around the terminology have changed. So, so be a a smart consumer of your news. Again, I'll just put in a plug for the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt. We vet our resources and information very carefully. Oh, okay. Another question from Rachel. Can you clarify what the sibling in college change is?
Do you want to take Carole or you want me to?
Well, I'll give my simple, I know, like, okay, too much information. So I have 3 kids and they were very conveniently 4 years apart, so they didn't overlap. And everyone's like, oh, you didn't get that sibling discount. Well, now folks aren't getting that sibling discount. So basically it's when you have more than one child in college at the same time. And Karla, so the added cost or the allocation for having more than one college going child used to be factored in to the calculation, and now it's not. I don't know if you want to add anything, Karla, to improve that definition.
Yeah, that's pretty much, it's so hard to try to figure out how to explain it in the formula, but really kind of the simplest way to understand it in the old way is that if you had one student in college and their EFC was 5,000, if that same family had 2 students in college, that same EFC number was split between the 2 students. So that 5,000 number would actually be 2,500 for each of the 2 students in college. They're taking that part of the calculation out. So if a family's expected family contribution, now SAI student aid index is 5,000, it's going to be 5,000 or very similar between 2 siblings, because individuals can have different incomes Two siblings don't always have the exact same student aid index, but the parent contribution portion should be almost identical, if not identical. So you're just, again, getting rid of that benefit of cutting that formula down between two students instead of it just being assigned to one in school.
And just to add on to that, again, because we are in sort of a frontier here, different colleges are making different kinds of decisions about what they might do about it. And as Karla said, since colleges haven't received the information, a lot of this is still, I think, somewhat speculative for colleges. So we don't know, like, we don't know how this is going to affect the aid packages. I did want to emphasize for everyone on the call that because of this delay and the staggered way in which people are likely now to get their financial aid offers, if you or a student you're working with are getting are applying to multiple colleges, you want to be sure to receive those aid packages. And, again, look at deadlines of the individual colleges. May 1 has been considered the universal college deposit deadline. Some colleges are already making the decision to move that back because of these delays. What I want to share with everyone here is make an informed decision about your college choice. So you may get one offer first, maybe it looks great, but if you've applied to and been admitted and are interested in multiple colleges, it's really worth your time to get all of those packages and to understand them and to see, particularly if you're applying to both private colleges and public colleges, you're likely to see very different kinds of aid packages. And I will say, related to that, so when people are getting those offers and are trying to make sense of them, we will be running a webinar in April, helping folks understand how to read an aid offer and make sense of it and know, again, really what their bottom line costs are likely to be.
And schools really are going to work as quickly as possible once we do get this FAFSA data kind of in all directions. One, to make sure those aid offers get out as quickly as we can get them out, to then look for some of these students who haven't gotten those FAFSAs done and where we can support them in getting it completed. And my thought just went completely out of my head. It's going to be one of those days, I guess. I don't remember where I was going with that.
Well, just the people are you're working with families, right? The colleges, right? Colleges are as eager as anyone here to get this.
That's the part I was going with. Where I was going to wrap that with is, we will know, like, as soon as we have a sense of when aid offers are going out, we're not going to hide it. We're not going to keep it secret. The problem is we truly, most schools just don't know. Like, we can't even have an estimate of a timeline for when aid offers will go out because the timelines we're being given are so vague and kind of nondescript. So do keep in touch, whether you're following your schools on Instagram or going to those financial aid pages. If you're kind of hot to know when things are going to start moving, we will tell you, and schools will let folks know when these different processes start happening.
Great. We're almost at time. I don't know if there's any final quick questions from the group that we can answer. We did record this session. We will be sharing it with attendees and those who registered for the event. Again, just a plug for the activities that are coming up. We are running webinars on a variety of different student loan and financial aid topics. You can see those on our website and through our newsletter. In addition, we want to hear from all of you. What are the topics where you want information? What are your pain points? What are the, around the full spectrum of student loan debt and financial aid? So I think we're pretty much at the end of our time here. I want to thank Karla. There can't be a busier place right now than a financial aid office with all the things going on. So Karla has been she is a tremendous financial aid community citizen. She gives of her time constantly to help families navigate this process and students. So thank you, Karla, for your time and your expertise. And thank you everyone on this call for joining us, and fill out your FAFSAs.
Yep. And reach out for help where you need it. That's what we're here for. Thanks,
Yeah.
y'all.
Thank you.